Thank you so much for your support too and for Sonja's sSoulsations. It really means a lot. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to God for this opportunity to just be in this space, to be in this space with you and to be in this space with myself. I'm just so always very reflective, and so I'm grateful that I can listen and ponder on the things that I'm sharing uh, with you, but they always start with what I need to meditate and to reflect on and to listen to and listen back to myself. And I had a wonderful opportunity earlier to just be in this quiet space. And I don't know about many of you, but I love to journal. I love to journal, and I was journaling, and as I wrote something down, it just is like the presence of the living God just grabbed that word that I shared, that phrase, that sentence, and just this impactful meditation uh, came up for me. And I have often had to repeat myself. I don't know about you, but I've often had to repeat myself to someone else. And there are times that I repeat things back to myself. When my children were younger, I would often have to repeat something to them, an instruction or a direction or a rule. Something I would have to repeat it and say it over and over and over and over again. And then when my children were smaller and in their young age, in their youth and their adolescence, there were times that I would have them to write a scripture over and over and over again, repeating. And that's what repeating is, saying something or writing something over and over again. And when my grandchildren, some of them are still young, but the older ones, some of the older ones, when they were younger, I would sing a song to them, and I would sing that song over and over and over and over to them, or repeat something over and over to them, saying it over and over again. Like one word I can remember for my children, they're all adults now and have their families. But one word I would often have to repeat is no. No, stop, no, don't do that. And then there were times I would encourage them, yes, do more of that. Yes, do more of that. So repeating, saying something over and over again, or writing something over and over again, just really put me in this space of going back to moments that I personally had to repeat something over again to those in my life, and sometimes repeating messages or affirmations or scripture or just the reflection over to myself. And then repeating and repetition, you know, when my children were younger, and I'm thinking of them today, as you can see, I would sing an important message or a lesson they needed to learn or something regarding their education. Just put it to a song, a melody, repeating whatever that message was, whatever that lesson was, over and over with song. And and then even as I'm thinking of a few of my children and grandchildren are into music, and I know in some music, and they call the hook. My husband even shared that one time. That's the hook. And the hook, as many of you may be familiar with, may be the title of the song, but throughout the song, the title is in the chorus, or, in the rest of the song. And so the hook is repetitive. The hook is repeated. But then as I began to really think about when I have to say something over again, there's a couple things that came up for me also. So sometimes someone may say something to me and I may not hear them clearly. And I may ask them, could you please repeat what you said? And most times that happens. But then there's also when someone says something to me and I cannot hear it, but their intent is not really for me to hear it. It's really for them to speak it, but for me not to hear it. And when I was growing up, our grandparents and parents would be like, did you mumble something under your breath? Because we dare not say what we mumbled under our breath. We would not. We would definitely not do that. And even with my children, you know, when they were younger, they didn't want me to hear what they said. They wanted to express themselves, but they didn't want me to hear. So they may have mumbled under their breath. And so they did not want to repeat what they shared. And then there are the moments, right, for me, and let me know in the comments section, let me know if this has happened for you. But sometimes you have repeated yourself over and over. Has that happened to you? Well, it certainly has happened to me. I have repeated myself over and over again. At some point, I'm like, I am not saying this to you again. Now, I may do it in that tone so that the other person can see the seriousness of what I mean. I'm not saying this to you again. I've already said this. And then sometimes it may be in a very laid back, calmer tone, like, listen, I've said this to you multiple times. What is it that you're not getting about what I'm saying? So there's some clarification in repetition. And then there's some boundaries surrounded around repeating a repetition. So this morning, in my journaling, it really took me to a place where I think, God, how many times have you shared this with me? There's something about what you, God, are sharing with me that you want me to pay close attention to. And sometimes for me, that is why I repeat what I say to someone so that they are very clear of what I am saying, what I want them to know. But then there are times that I know others have heard exactly what I have said on multiple occasions, and they choose to ignore what I say and the importance and the significance around what I have repeated many, many times. And so for me to be empowered, I may just get to the space where I'm not going to repeat it again. So it's twofold. Repetition, repeating something or writing something over and over again can be very helpful, and it can set boundaries and clarify. And then there's times having to repeat something over and over can be exhausting. And so I don't want to repeat it over and over again. Or at the time, it just may not be the right moment to repeat it again. So, what in your life do you have to constantly say to others for them to get the seriousness of what you are saying? What is that phrase? What is that hook? What is that hook that you constantly have to share with someone so they really get it? And then, what are things that you choose not to repeat because you've said it so many times? You know that person, that family member, that friend, or that person that you're encountering has heard you, and you just don't want to repeat what you said. And then lastly, one of the ways that I learn, I did this a lot in school when I was younger, in seminary. I often write phrases and things that I want to learn and really get in a clear understanding and to remember and to be able to um, reframe it. I would write it and write it constantly. I still do that. If something is really affirming or something I really want to ponder, meditate, and get into my spirit, get into the whole of me, I may write it over and over again, or I may say it over and over again. I want to thank you again, repeating thanks. I'm repeating my thankfulness to each of you. Thank you for your support for Sonja sSoulsations. In the comment section, let me know, what does repetition and repeating important messages and words and your core values, what does that look like for you? And how often do you find you have to repeat something that you were hopeful that that family member, that friend, or who you encountered would remember about you or remember what you were saying? And then does repetition, does it appear and come across sometimes exhausting and depleting of your energy? And then what hook, I want to leave you with this, what hook do you find yourself repeating in your life? What's the hook? What's the hook? For me, the hook is self-care. That's my hook. You will see it show up in how I encounter others, how I'm taking charge of my life, how I am healing and growing. My hook is self-care. Let me know what yours is. Have a blessed and beautiful day. Blessings, love, peace, and joy.